In this video, we're going to talk about some upgrades that we can make to a spray gun and compressor kit in order to make life a little bit easier.
Yep.
So firstly, starting with a spray gun. We mentioned in an earlier video about controlling the pressure at the compressor, but actually we don't need to do that all of the time. We can just do that once.
Yeah.
To be able to do that, we then need a pressure gauge on our gun. So we've got a couple of types here that we can show you. So this is a standard analog pressure gauge, which would go directly onto the bottom of the gun. That allows us to adjust the pressure at the gun end rather than having to go back to the compressor. As long as the pressure of the compressor is higher than what we need here, we're able to adjust that for whatever our requirements are. As you can see, this is an analog one. There's various ones on there. We also have a digital pressure gauge.
Yeah.
These vary in price points, but ultimately they all do the same sort of thing. This one would stay on there as it is. We would also need a water trap on here because of the moisture that we're going to get from the compressor. Could potentially travel along the hose, or that water could condense from the air as it travels along the hose and then could be blown out with our finishes. So we need to make sure that that is stopped before it comes out the end of the gun, again ruining the finish. So that would be a whirlwind style water trap, which again goes on to the end of the gun here. I'm not tightening these up fully, but you'll see that actually with all these bits starting to come on the end, again we're going back to the gun being quite a long piece of kit, particularly once we've got the hose on as well.
The adapter on.
So then we would actually need to fit in on there as well. Again, it's a little bit excessive here because we haven't fully tightened those. But as that then goes into there, you can see that is a long piece of kit on the end of that. So we can actually reduce this, can't we?
Yes, we can.
Quite a bit.
Excuse me.
There is a couple of ways that we can reduce that, and one of them is to be able to remove this water trap. Now we have come up with a little bit of an engineering feat, if you like, haven't we, with the compressor itself? I'll let you explain a little bit about that if you like.
Sure. So if you were installing a compressor in a workshop, there would be a whole system of installation. You would have a 10-meter run of pipe before you got to any user outlets, and the pipe generally would go up and it would have a little gentle fall coming down, and there'd be vertical drop-offs to let the water drain out. It would be a whole system. And what we've done is kind of made that possible with the portable compressor in a mobile system. So we have an air filter here, which is a filter separator, and this will take particles and water vapor, moisture, out of the air. And then we have a 10-meter length of hose here, and effectively by wrapping this around the handle, starting high, as the air comes out of the compressor, it goes up to the top, and then it winds its way down through a coil of hose, and finally comes through the low point here, which is where any moisture gets taken out of the air. That's effectively like having a portable system.
It is.
Which is what you need to remove that moisture, and then you have a little push button drain valve here, which after the moisture is gathered in this bowl, you can press that button and it will get fired out through that little hose there.
Exactly. So the way this would work is that this piece on the end, this fit-in, would plug into our compressor as usual. We would start high and work that hose winding downwards with this filter strapping onto the side. So what we would actually need to do from here is to have a second hose then go into our gun. What happens in this first 10 meters is that the air condenses, so the water then drops out of that into this. This filter here actually spins out the air, doesn't it? And gets that moisture out of the air as well. So we've got all of that done before it gets anywhere near the hose that is actually coming to our gun. So this is a very, very good little system we've got here, and again with an add-on piece there for a quick release fit-in. You can see here there's a couple of types of these filters. These aren't too different in terms of price, but in terms of performance, quality, and the aesthetic of them, there's a little bit more of a difference there. But these will ultimately they'll both do the same thing.
Yeah.
So by having one of those on our kit, we can straight away remove this because there is no need for it. Now our fit-in can go directly onto the gauge. And all of a sudden this looks a little bit cleaner, a little bit tidier and a little bit shorter. We can actually go a little bit further than this, particularly with Walcom's design of digital pressure gauges there. That is quite a nice feature on this one.
Like this gauge.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So, do you want to explain a little bit about this gauge and how that works?
Okay, so this is a carbon fibre pressure gauge, which has it's a carbon fibre pressure regulator, which has a digital gauge, and after the gauge is quick release, so you can pull back a little collar and remove the gauge from the spray gun, which means when you're spraying, you don't get overspray all over your gauge. That just pops back on. We're going to do another video later, which is all about how to actually set the pressure, but so we won't go into that. But so that's one option. Walcom also, with the analog gauge, I forgot to mention, they provide a push-on cap, which serves the same purpose to keep the overspray off, but then the gauge actually stays on. So you like that one, don't you? Where you can take it off and just get it out of the way completely.
That's it. So I can actually set my pressure via the dial there. Once I'm set, that can come off, and actually this is so nice and compact, and I'm able to spray with this, plug in straight in to here. It looks like there's still a bit of length on there, but actually this is all very, very flexible, very, very nice to use, all lightweight, and the weight of this gun, I mean, compared to the other two that we've been holding today, this is ridiculously light. So actually we've come all the way through this system and created what we feel is the best and easiest and most comfortable kit, isn't it, overall?
Absolutely, I totally agree.
To be able to spray uPVC in particular with this kit, but also kitchens, joinery and other stuff, which we will explain in further videos down the line.
Absolutely.
Finally, we'll go on to a couple of accessories. If you want to explain about these wonderful bits
the blow guns. Yes, so this is actually, I've got to say, James introduced me to these as well. So blow guns are useful for blowing dust off your workpiece after you've done the prep. Got to be careful not to blow all your masking away, but generally, if you have a dusty surface, these are handy to plug in. Actually, some of them are longer than others. You'll notice, for example, this has quite a long nozzle on it, and it's metal. So if people get carried away, you can hit the workpiece with this, and you know, if you're being a bit clumsy. Also, this has a fairly small nozzle on it. You need to keep it away from. You don't want to be blowing yourself down with these kinds of things, which some people do when they're covered in dust. It's I'll just blow myself down. It's not a great idea to do that. With you've got to be a bit respectful with compressed air. A more compact and arguably safer gun to use is this little pocket gun, which plugs into the quick release fitting, and the quick release becomes part of the handle. These are really, really neat guns, and they also have a hole in the side of the nozzle, so that if the nozzle did get obstructed, the pressure is reduced because the air is allowed to come out through the side there. So
really good little safety feature on those.
Great little safety feature there.